All right. Well, I'll call the Winnebago County Human Services Board to order. First order of business, public comments. Anyone on agenda items? Anybody have any comments on agenda items? No public comment? Okay,
Going once, going twice.
all right. Next up, economic support overview was Ann.
Feel right up here. Good afternoon. So economic support today. We have about 45 people in economic support. 4 of them are part-time. We added some part-time positions a few years ago as a way to retain staff who were feeling like they couldn't work due to family issues. And they take those half-time positions for a while and then they go back to full-time when the kids go to school or things change again. So that has worked out really well for us. And we are also part of a 9-county consortium. And so within the whole consortium, the amount of workers that we have is 116 economic support specialists. So anytime someone calls our call center, they could talk to any one of 116 people from 9 different counties to get the same service. A little bit different than the other divisions. We all do the same thing. So we don't have this team working on this and this team working on this. In economic support, we all do the same thing. We do it with slightly different populations. We have what we call the family team. What they work on are the applications and cases for families with children, single adults who are not disabled. Pretty much that. What we call the EBD team stands for elderly, blind, and disabled. And what they do, the team is not elderly, blind, and disabled. They work with people who are disabled by Social Security standards or at least 65 years old. Because the rules and the programs vary a little bit for those 2 populations. So the programs that we administer, we work on 3 basic programs: food share, used to be called food stamps, and about around 2001, we switched to debit cards. At that point, it was no longer called stamps, it's food share. The national program is called SNAP, same thing. Each state calls it what they want. In Illinois, you get a Link card. In Wisconsin, you get a Quest card, but it's a debit card, like you would, looks like any other bank card, and they just swipe it at the register, or they can use it or Amazon or Walmart online to have groceries. That changed during COVID, that they could order online. So we always are looking at, everything starts with what we call our non-financials and our financials. So they have to live in the state of Wisconsin, they have to meet certain criteria like that. And then we look at the income limits, and they have to meet the income limits. Most of our programs start at 200% of the federal poverty limit. And then from there, we look at some expenses. I won't get into the details because there's a lot. If a household is receiving food share, a household of 1 will get anywhere from $20 to $250 a month. It's all based on income and expenses. A household of 4 gets anywhere from $1 to $835.
That's for the month?
For the month.
Right.
The average allotment statewide is $254 a month, so varies a lot, but that's the average statewide. Who's getting these benefits? And some of these stats I only have for the state of Wisconsin, but almost half of the households have someone elderly, blind, and disabled in them. They're receiving food share. 34% have at least 1 minor child. Of those with the children, 14% have 2-parent households. 61% have a 1-parent household, but 25% of the kids don't have their parents with them in the household. It could be they're staying, they're foster children, kinship children, staying with grandma for a while. Sometimes they're just living with another family for a little while due to family circumstances. 29% have at least 1 person working. Again, these are statewide stats. 55% are female, 45% are male. That's who gets the food share benefits. In Winnebago County, 16,500 people receive food share. So if you're
Of
ever,
some amount or another.
yes, yep, that's about 8,000 households, 16,500 individuals.
You're talking about here in the county.
That's Winnebago County. The average amount of food share so far in 2022 dollar amount in Winnebago County, almost 4 million a month. That's what it's contributing to the economy, to our families. And I always say with the other divisions, if they're working with them, we probably are as well. They're probably receiving our benefits, because that's where they're at. So that's the food share, then childcare assistance. Much fewer people, a lot fewer people on, about 500 children in Winnebago County receive childcare assistance. It's called Wisconsin Shares. Also a debit card that goes right to the daycare. We assess their activity, which is usually working, or they could be working with a job search program. And then their schedules, and if it's a two-parent family, it's only when the schedules of the two parents overlap, so they both need it. And then an amount is determined, it's put on their card, they swipe it at the daycare. Everyone on child care assistance also has a co-payment. That's part of the philosophy that they have to pay part of the care for their own children. And then the last one is the largest program, Badger Care or Medicaid. Different names for different populations. Medicaid is for the elderly, blind, and disabled population. Badger Care is for single adults and for families and children. Again, for low income people, most are working if they're not on the Medicaid. Within the Medicaid, they might be on family care or IRIS, so working with the ADRC and with the MCOs. We have about 30,000 people on some type of Badger Care in Winnebago County. And then about another 7,500 in the EBD Medicaid. So almost 40,000 people in Winnebago County are receiving some type of Badger Care or Medicaid. And really, again, you wouldn't know that's what they have if you see them at the doctor's office. They just have an insurance card like we do. And it is some of the best insurance you could ever get. So it's a good thing to have. And how do these people get to us? Obviously, there's not 40,000 people in that lobby right now where my staff are. So we have 4 different ways. One is our call center. And so between 8 o'clock and 4 o'clock, almost every day, Thursday, we only open half the day so staff can have training and meetings, but they can call and they can put in an application. They can update their case. They can ask us questions. And we can do literally everything on that call except documents. We can do a telephonic signature, anything they need, we can do on that call. They can go online to it's called Access, and they can submit their application, they can submit their documents, they can submit a change. Sometimes we still need to talk to them by phone or in person after that, but they can communicate with us that way and submit their applications. They can come into the office. You don't see 40,000 people, but you certainly see people all day long, and that's an acceptable way to see us. We have staff here every day still that can meet with them if need be. And if they don't want to wait for a staff person, we have the computer and phone in the lobby for them to contact the call center to log into Access if they don't have means for that at home. And that's a requirement that we have those things here for them. And people can mail us things. We still get a call saying, I want to apply for Badger Care. I'm not in a rush, just mail me an application. They still do that, and we can do that. And where's my staff at? I think I've got my staff, and now we post the new positions this way: at home 80% of the time, and in the office 1 day of the week. So right now that's meeting the need because of how we work. So and it has been so far working for staff retention too. So, that is economic support in a nutshell. Do you have questions at all?
Any questions?
You said, Oliver did that $4 million. I think we're talking about an average.
Yep.
I thought you were gonna tell us what the average household was getting. Do you have that information or no?
Statewide, the average is $254,
For the month?
yes, for each household.
And-
Which could be anywhere from $20 to,
Well, apparently from $1.
yeah,
I mean,
Which-
who figured that scenario? What is a person supposed to do for $1?
I don't know
in a
that I've
month?
ever seen $1, but I.
That's it.
But it's interesting because when I look at the tables, they show for one person, the minimum is $20, and by the time you get to, it's either 3 or 4 people, it shows the minimum is $1. Again, that's all federal, I don't know. Damn me.
Okay,
Part of it is there are some certain, statutes regarding those 1 and 2 people households that impact how those work. But why that would mean that 4 people could have $1.
okay.
But it does, even if they only get $1, there are different advantages that come with being a food share
So yeah,
recipient,
it's
like.
$1.
They qualify for free school lunch if they're food share
Oh,
recipients, so there are some different
Okay.
reasons why it would be advantageous for them to,
Okay.
again, I have never.
So the
seen that,
$1 is a technicality in order to apply,
It
in order
could
to
be.
qualify for.
Right, it could be, again,
Okay.
I have never seen that, never.
Okay.
But- Other questions?
Any other questions?
Thank
Good
you.
reporting and thank you.
Nicole, any questions? All right, thank you. All right, moving on then. Approved minutes of the October 3rd, 2022 Human Services Board meeting.
So moved. Second.
Motion was made and seconded to accept. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, then accept the minutes of the October 10th, 2022 ADRC committee meeting.
I move to accept the ADRC committee minutes.
Second.
Motion was made and seconded to accept the ADRC committee meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Inpatient and institutional placement stats, Bill.
Okay, so we're gonna do our usual 3-page graphs. Hopefully it's in your packet. I think it's about in the middle. And they look the same as they do every month. I think what's different on page 1, which is our Child Welfare Division Juvenile Corrections, that's the top graph. You'll see that we now reflect that we have 1 person at Lincoln Hills who is in fact sentenced there, but is currently at the Mendota Juvenile Treatment Center, which we don't reflect as that because they're technically sentenced to Lincoln Hills, and then Lincoln Hills is subsequently transferred them to Mendota Juvenile Treatment Center. It's the same cost, so we're reflecting that as the same cost. So what we have done this year is basically, we know that we didn't budget for a half year that person, but we are able to transfer some money into that area to cover the cost of that person. And then next year, Janet, help me out. Did we put a little more money in the budget to reflect that, right?
For
6 months.
For 6 months, which we assume it'll be right about that amount because the person's actually gone in this year and hopefully will not be there, you know, more than 6 months, but you know, if they stay longer, then we'll have to worry about transferring some more cash. So it's our first time we've had somebody at Lincoln Hills. It was necessary, it was court ordered, and when that happens, we have to pay it. So that's what went on with that graph. On the bottom graph, it's Child Welfare Division Residential Care Centers, RCCs, and I always say this, you know, the one RCC everybody will identify with and know is Rawhide. That doesn't mean that any of our people are there. It's just that's the type of facility. It's not locked, but a person's required to be there for usually a year at a time. And right now we have 2 placements. At least in September, we did. So I'm still not alarmed by that. I think we're still okay. It's just that the nature of where kids need that service. That's where we have to place them. So page 2 is now we're getting into the inpatient hospitals that are not covered by health insurance or Medicaid. Mostly that's Winnebago Mental Health Institute, but it can also be Fond du Lac Health Center. And we are showing, and I can't quite read the number because I'm scheduled for another cataract
4.2.
surgery on Friday. Was it
4.2.
4.2? So it is not as high as what it was in the middle of summer. It's still up from years past in terms of averages. And Heather and I are having discussions about folks there and what we need to do. And basically, I would say that sometimes you can't create alternatives for people that have too serious an illness. We just have to go with it and pay it. And that's where we're at right now. And then the bottom graph is the inpatient hospital stays for kids. And there the number is down where it typically is. And probably will average out this year to be about where we ended up last year. So I think we're okay there. And then page 3, Child Welfare Division Secure Detention. That's mostly Fond du Lac. Our contract is for 3 beds right now. And that's advising me that there's a serious lack of secure detention beds. Our numbers have been averaging more like 4 or 5. And so part of our recommendation for what we're going to do for budgeting is probably request to add a 4th bed back to Fond du Lac Secure Detention because we're going to need it. And because 2 other secure detentions have shut down in the state and they're going to be vying for the same beds. So we don't need action on it. I'm just advising you that we're probably looking at adding a 4th bed back to Fond du Lac. We had 4 beds. We went down to 3 because the numbers were low, but now they're creeping up again. And because of the shortage, we need to probably secure that 4th bed. So when that's going to try for that. And then child welfare, the last column or last graph is our actual foster care numbers, kids in foster care, and they are going down. And to the lowest point looks like that we've seen. Maybe you could quickly comment on that, Annette, as to what you're seeing the trends in sorry, not shelter care, in foster care.
We had a large group of number of kids who went home because of the start of the school year. You know, a lot of times we don't move them until like the end of the school year, beginning of the school year, but that's where those go. So there's a lot of kids that went home. We continue to work really hard to keep kids with family and relatives and wrap them as best we can. And what happens with that sometimes is some of the kids that do need placement have higher needs than a foster home can manage. And that's why you see some of these other facilities going up with it. But our team works very hard to keep kids with their relatives and their family, and that reduces the need for foster home.
So is it fair to say the combination of having a lot of kids go home because of the start of the school year in September, plus some kids not being able to be in foster care because they need to be in a little bit higher level of care, so
Yep.
that's why the numbers right here are lower. Do you think the trend will go kind of back to more what we've seen in the last few years?
I would say
Please,
we're in that direction, but I don't think we're gonna be experts. We're working hard to just out of that as much.
This is
A really good group of staff.
from someone who used to work on that team. These are historic numbers. So great job. Wow.
Yeah, really.
Okay, any questions on the graphs or where we're going with?
Question on graph going?
And Missy has not come home yet, right?
Well, we got an update on it.
She's coming home on Thursday. Coming back to Wisconsin on Thursday. She's moving into a different facility, when they get off the airplane on Thursday.
And you're really happy with the facility, you know she's gonna be fine and.
Well, she's now turned 18 and so she's now enrolled in family care. So family care is
Thank you,
taking over.
for a couple of years or more. Yeah, thank
It's been
you.
a good place, that place. We've done it, this place made a lot of significant progress and,
Okay,
it's best, and he helped us to get her into a good facility. So
Okay,
she'll do
wonderful.
well, and they all care about her a lot too, but they're gonna be the ones to make sure.
and somebody she knows is gonna meet her at the airport.
We're actually flying out there to pick her up.
Oh, you are?
That's how.
Oh, that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, make sure that she's got somebody with her. One out
Good.
there to get her, bring her back, take her to her new facility so that she could.
Okay,
And she's in agreement, she can't wait to come back to Wisconsin. She's excited.
Huh? Seeing none, then, financials, yeah.
So you should have the report. Your paperwork there. So based on the September financials, you can see that everything is favorable in all of the categories, and as of right now, we're projecting about a $3.6 million surplus at year end. Keep an eye on it, how that year end is fast approaching. So the next page with the graphs of expenses and revenues, expenses were just about average for the month of September. Revenues came in a little higher than average. We had two larger payments from the state. One was for our BCA basic county allocation funds, and the other was for children's long-term services in the long-term support division. So those two big sources of revenue came in September. So when we look at where we think the surplus is coming from at year end, it hasn't changed much. It's still pretty much our operating expenses and our labor savings. Next year, we hope to see that labor savings go down a little bit as we're getting better at being fully staffed. And then you can just see the summary where it kind of shows that our expenses are a little lower than we budgeted and our revenues are a little higher, and that's what leads to the surplus. So, a couple of things just to mention for September. Renee mentioned last month that we had some grant funds available that we had to use up rather quickly. So we were able to buy two pieces of software, which we're very excited about. One is a report writing software that is attached to our Luna software program that tracks all of our behavioral health and long-term support kind of services. We think we're going to be able to do a lot more analysis, whereas before we had to go through other people to get those reports. We can do it ourselves now, and I think it's going to be a great benefit once we learn how to use it and efficiently. So we're in that process right now. The other thing we were able to purchase was grants management software. Grants management software. We have about $17 million in grant funding. And currently we have a huge spreadsheet that tries to track all of that. So this is really like cool software. We just had our first training today, and I'm very excited about this. And again, I think it's gonna enable us to pull the reports much easier and really keep track of that. And it will alert people when reports need to go in, and it's pretty slick. So we're very excited about those two pieces of software. So thank you, Anne. You're in fact, I just had a call from the health department today asking us about the grants management software. So apparently they're interested now too.
So while you're on the topic of monies that we get, that we had to actually expend, were you gonna talk about the other part of the Ann's grant, or am I stealing your thunder on this?
Go ahead.
So in Ann's area, there was some very specific funding that had to be
Encumbered.
encumbered, thank you, by the end of September. And one of the things that we identified as a project was to have a more elaborate video and audio system here in this room and also in 08. Because we do have the owl right now, and as you can see on the screen, the owl is pretty good at actually capturing, you know, the bigger room plus who's talking, me with my hands. But we wanted to, you know, get a more sophisticated audio visual setup because the county board wants this recorded and wants to be able to see everybody in the room and really, you know, get an accurate copy of what happened. So we worked with a couple of different vendors. We got a couple of different estimates, and we were able to walk into a company that is local. I think we can, it's a camera casino, who has a kind of a side business in this area. And so we're going to get this room upgraded with audio visual and also 08 and Nina. And that's because of monies that came through economic support. We were able to hurry up. We had to move heaven and earth, not just our department, but a whole number of departments over at the administration building, and make the timeframes happen very quickly. So thank you to Anne and her, you know, just saying, hey, we have some money here, we need to spend it, to Janet and working with the finance people over at CAB and moving pieces of paper around and getting everybody's permission under the wire for September 30th.
And we'll use it for trainings and meetings too, with 80% of the staff remote, so it's not just. hey,
Right,
here's
so it's not just these,
stuff.
it's not just reporting these, but anything we're gonna do between here and Neenah. Or even outside, we can do some more.
Thank you.
And there was just one other thing, last month I talked about how it looked like some of our expenses were starting to rise kind of post-pandemic. Coming out of the pandemic, so I took a look at actually the number of staff miles that we were reimbursing for. And through September this year versus through September last year, our miles reimbursed have gone up 40%. So it's pretty significant. So we do kind of expect to see some of that, you know, returning to pre-pandemic levels. So keep an eye on that.
We did ask for another vehicle and you agreed to request to put in the exec's budget a replacement vehicle or another vehicle. And that was turned down. So we are staying with our present complement of vehicles, which I think is 12 or 13? 13, and that's between here, Neenah, Crisis Center, Shelter Care. So basically, we have probably about 8 or so here that's available. And of course, that's not enough for everybody to use the county vehicles to go pick up kids and families and do what they need to do. So a lot of people are using their own vehicles. And we are reimbursing them at IRS rates. So I don't think that it's in the cards for us to have enough vehicles for all county employees to use just county vehicles to do that. I don't know that that's necessarily the best usage anyway, because everybody seems to need a car between, let's say, 2 or 3 in the afternoon and 6 o'clock at night. And so even if we had double the amount of vehicles that we had, we still wouldn't be able to have enough vehicles to, transport with just county. So, I mean, so what I'm saying about travel reimbursement is a thing that's here to stay. We're gonna have to have that in place. Yeah.
When an employee uses her own vehicle for transporting, for whatever she's doing.
Right.
Not just for driving to and from work, but using it for county business.
Right.
Is that additional insurance on us, or does she have to carry additional insurance, or?
Well, you're asking a good question because.
I know, I only ask the good ones.
That is a good question because the county has had a policy that you have to have insurance on your vehicle.
Yeah.
And not everyone has checked with their insurance company to find out whether or not they need to carry additional insurance. So the current policy is that if you have an accident, that whatever your deductible is, you have to pay your deductible. And whatever the insurance company then doesn't, your insurance company doesn't pay, then the county, I think, would consider whatever the additional is. It's not, and am I saying that right, Janet? And
The county will submit a claim.
Yeah, the county does reimburse the employee their deductible,
oh, they do?
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
up to $500.
up to $500.
Yeah.
But if you have $1,000 deductible,
Then you're
all
then you're out.
You're out 500.
So it's a little bit wonky because it still kind of falls on the person and their insurance. But then the county is like doing something after the fact, as opposed to if a county just like had a larger policy covering people.
We don't have that kind of thing.
They don't have, no, this
And
county,
if Beth has to buy additional insurance to tow people someplace,
so
and
the,
she's covered, so she's got a basic coverage that she's got herself, for liability and, okay, but then they say, you're gonna be moving people for work around, you need additional, then do we pay her? No, she has to do that. You have to do that yourself then.
Yeah,
Right.
it is an additional cost. And funny you should be asking this because this comes up from time to time from employees. And Bill did go to bat, meaning he went to county administration just last summer and brought this forward again, but.
It was turned down. This isn't right.
so this, there's a risk manager for the county. They have an employee called a risk manager. It's under Mike Collard in the Department of Administration. Different counties do this policy different. Let me just say that. Some counties, want to basically say, hey, if you're gonna do any business with the county, we'll cover you with our umbrella. Other counties are doing kind of like what we're doing, which is basically like you maintain your coverage. If for some reason your insurance doesn't cover it, then, we'll consider picking it up. I think it is discouraging some staff from wanting to use their own vehicles and then wanting to use the county vehicle. But we have a problem because we don't have enough vehicles for everybody to use. So it's kind of a catch-22. Personally, I'd like to see the county cover employees during their work. That would be my preference as a department head, but I'm not the decider of that.
All during county budget hearings, we kept hearing, I can't hold staff, because, the counties just to the north of us are paying more. Benefits are better, What are those counties to the north that they keep referencing? What are they doing for,
Well, so to be honest, it's a mixed bag. I mean, some of those
Oh.
counties are doing the same thing we are.
okay,
But what I'm trying to get at is, if we go to a system where you want all the county employees to use county vehicles, then we have to have a lot more county vehicles. I don't think that's particularly
that's probably not gonna work. But it
price,
does
I think
seem-
that's pricey, but when it comes to the other side of it, where we want our workers to use their cars. Then if they have to get extra insurance, we've heard of some problems with that. Some county employees are not able to get it for one reason or another, because again, it depends on whether your insurance company was wanting to do that. Sometimes they say, yeah, we'll give you the extra insurance, but we won't let you transport your own kids, let's say.
In your own car.
Because of X, Y, and Z. So, there's been issues with, let me just say this, there's been issues with that. I've tried to voice them, higher than myself. I think right now we're doing the same thing we've done for the 15 years that I've been here, which is basically if you take somebody, you get into an accident, you pay your deductible, and basically you get reimbursed at the end if it's $500. So that's how we're dealing with it.
Okay, you get an accident, you have insurance, but it's not your fault. You're hit by a non-insured driver. So your insurance, because you probably opted for liability with being accidents with non-insured drivers.
Right.
And then your insurance company wants to raise your premium because they paid out something on something you didn't do. Somebody did it to you, and the people who did it to you were not insured, and you were doing it on behalf of Winnebago County.
And so some employees probably have been greatly affected by that over the years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is I don't think anybody around this table now can fix it. It's just, I'm trying to report to you what we're experiencing. And the reason that we got into this is because Janet's saying that our expenses for people using their own vehicles is going up, which is true because we don't have enough county vans to everybody think they're the county van. So we have this little extra problem. I don't know that you guys can, as county board members can, address it because we have to, it's an administration thing that we have to.
And do we only use our, let's see. If the vehicle is purchased for human services. And Parks needed an extra vehicle because all of theirs are being used. We don't share vehicles back and forth. Parks isn't using.
That would be
human services.
unusual.
We're
It
not,
would be unusual.
Never have.
But could it happen? Yes, but has it happened? No.
okay. I think I'm done asking questions. Thanks. I'm sorry.
Any other questions? See none, and Renee.
Okay. So a few things going on lately is, all of us in management, just finished performance evaluations. And when I say management, I mean county-wide, because county-wide, they're all due for everybody by October 31st. So that was just a week ago. So for many of us, that was, as in just last week, we're finishing up evaluations and then bombarding human resources. So many of us were still working on that last week. Auditors are here this week for financial auditors, which is not just the finance team. They're to look at anything agency-wide. But I know that's always such a fun time for Janet and her team. And speaking of auditors, October is usually when behavioral health auditors are here. And so that was the case just last month for Behavioral Health Division, which is Heather and Tammy, who's off today. What was new this year, though, is our substance use programming, which is under 75 statute. There was a complete rewrite this last year, which really changed things for us in that area, meaning we usually have either a desk review, which means the state says, send us all these things so we know that you're staying in compliance, which we do. And then on subsequent years, they, or alternate years, they come in person and look at all of our stuff. So this year was an in-person visit, but with all the changes in 75, yes, we know what they want to see ahead of time, but with all the new changes, we did what we thought they wanted. But on such a happy note, as grueling as it is, there were no citations. So yay to, that division. So took a lot of work. Youth Government Day was last week, Thursday. Karen was over there as part of mock board meeting, right? Yeah, were you there as part of the trial too, or just board meeting?
I really wasn't even part of the board meeting. I was there with various department people, so
Huh.
I bounced around between the police, the sheriff and the coroner and so, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So if you don't know, Youth Government Day, we've had it every year in November for years and years. So what was different this year, though, I think it was different, is each department, we have 27 departments, were asked to give a little presentation in some way, shape, or form. And then some of our board members were there. We had a mock trial, so the youth from various high schools could see what that looks like. A mock board meeting. Ethan drafted 4 fake resolutions, quick ones, I would imagine, so the youth could see what that looks like, a proposal, and then board members voting on that or having commentary about that. So I was over there briefly last Thursday to participate in that as well. And then the final thing I had, hopefully you all received your invites from Pam. This year we are resuming our in-person holiday event in December over at the Expo Center. You're all invited. Hopefully you can make that. This year will be 3 years since we've done it in person.
So we should probably explain that it's a 2-hour meeting with a luncheon, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. generally. And it's mostly the Wave Committee, which is our employee recognition. They do fun things throughout the year. They get a little money for, collect a little money for sometimes for dress down days. We used to do that, but we're not really doing that anymore. But anyway, so the Wave Committee recognizes employees that have been here for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Does that. And then also there's some holiday festivities or some games that we play and some prizes, I think, that occasionally that we have. And they have a kind of a smorgasbord, some chicken, and then people bring dishes to pass. We've had it out at the Expo Center probably almost all of the years that I've been here. And board members are invited to come. And if you want to say something to the group, usually about 200 or so staff. If you want to say something to the group, you're more than welcome to come up to the microphone and just, wish people well for the holidays and say thank you. And our staff really like to see board members, and county exec has said he's coming to do a kind of 5-minute, thank you as well. And I think we've done cards for the nursing home, signed cards as we're kind of in line waiting for food. So it's a really nice, just kind of a 2-hour appreciation kind of luncheon thing. And for those of you who haven't gone, if you can attend, it's fine. It's not mandatory. It's, I think we've had, probably on average 2-3 board members that are able to make it. And if you got the time, feel free to come on over. And at the Expo Center, usually we've had it on one end of the Expo Center. Which end would you call that? If you're looking at the Expo Center main doors,
Usually.
it's usually to the right, but this time we're going to be to the left. So we're going to be sort of at the end, more toward the stands. If you know where.
The health department has been using the east side for the vaccination clinics,
Oh,
so they're all
Yeah,
set
so
up
more
there.
in the west.
it's an enjoyable party. There's no pressure.
Lots of food,
Yeah,
lots of
lots of
lots.
food.
lots of food.
Just kind of a nice holiday. Everybody likes it.
And what's the
because
date for that, or did you pick?
7th,
Seven.
December 7th, a Wednesday,
At what time?
from 11 to
Okay,
Yes,
I'm gonna go back to the employees evals.
Yeah.
Am I correct? They're not represented by a union?
Right.
correct.
Do they still vote every year whether they want a union?
no.
No.
If they're-
Sheriff's Department still has it. We do not.
If they want to be a union, they can be, but they have to vote to reorganize.
Yeah.
Into
But
it.
they haven't been doing that or?
They haven't been doing.
That's up to the union. to do it.
Can he still with Act 10? I thought Act 10
You can have a union, it's just that there's no more collective bargaining.
Okay.
I mean, excuse me, there's no more mandatory arbitration. You can meet and you can talk about what you'd like as a union with management, but there's no binding arbitration, so there's no going to a third party to work it out. But they could be organized.
But in order to research, you have to have 50% plus one of all employees do it, and you have to do it every year. That was the problem.
Now, when an employee is being evaluated and they have further questions or concerns, do they know what steps they're supposed to follow to get it resolved?
You mean like about their evaluation? So say it was me and I didn't agree with mine. So let's just go with that. Say it was me and I didn't agree with mine or had concerns about it. There is a form I can fill out and it would be attached to mine. That would be sent to HR. But that's about it. Or I could request to meet with HR. But in terms of changing the evaluation, which again, using me. Changing the evaluation or the score, the rating that I received from Bill, there really is no change in it.
But, am I correct? They don't go to HR until at least go through the bill.
Right, yeah. Typically, so again, using me,
Yeah.
I would start with Bill and talk with him about that and fill out the form. But the form I send directly to HR.
What about the few employees that are not meeting the minimum requirements, how are they dealt with?
If they're underperforming, then they would not receive a raise they would not receive a recommendation for a raise.
But I mean, are they encouraged to get in some kind of a program within the department to?
Sure, I mean, the goal is to try to address and understand why we have that impression and try to get them back on the track to get them up to speed. It's not to get them out, it's to try to get them up to speed.
We should already be having them on some type of we tend to call it a corrective plan. Addressing those behaviors, having a plan, or what are we gonna do if it doesn't change? That should already be happening well before we even get to evaluation.
Yeah, the performance evaluation shouldn't be the first time they're hearing it. They should be aware of how they're doing, like months and months in advance.
Now, there's also my understanding that we hired an outside firm again to kind of come in and study positions or something. Is it all positions or only some?
No, just some, not all. Not all.
Some present positions or some maybe projected positions?
Well, we were all asked to identify some positions within our organization that really we felt were not keeping up with market or we're having trouble recruiting. And so the pay study is supposed to address that group of employees where we think that they're below market and need to do something. So I think there's a misimpression that the pay study is going to cover everything, and it's not.
It must be then, because in that budget meeting, it must have come up 20, 30 different times that this is gonna be the cure-all. But now, and this is the first I've heard this study's not gonna cover a lot of stuff like that, because they were talking about the whole areas. That they were gonna, Is it a lot more from the pay to time off to what other counties are doing? That are different, what we should be doing, stuff like that. And they made it seem, from what I heard, is that. You know, they're counting on this thing a lot more than, you know, and that's where they even put money aside for that. Like you said, it was in certain areas.
So it's not every position.
Well, I mean, it could have, I'm telling you, when we first did this, the request was. Pick some specific jobs where you're having a tough time recruiting, and B, where you think. That they are below market or where they should be. And that's what we sent. We sent a select group, not the whole. And now if it's changed and it's become a whole study, I don't know that because I don't know what's happened with HR, but we were only gonna do it for a select group of jobs, not all. But, you know, as far as looking at where they are in the market, it could be a wide study like, you know, are they slotted correctly? What's the pay? Maybe it's morphed into like, what are we doing about benefits? I don't know that. I think that's a question to ask HR. It's not a question I can answer. So I don't know, but that's where it was to start with. Select.
That's interesting. Because of the stuff that we heard, or, I mean, implied, I mean, there wasn't any, we haven't seen anything with a list of this. But every time it came up is that we're having trouble keeping somebody, we're waiting for the study. The study is gonna be and everybody backs off because there's a study, but where is it? How long is it gonna be? Things like that.
What does it include? See, that's.
But yeah, and
They
it,
kept saying there's a study, but what's included in this study?
right,
So I mean, it could have changed. So in fairness, it could have changed to a broader study after we were given our initial instructions, but it was a smaller targeted study to begin.
it kind of makes a difference when
Yeah.
I mean, to me it does, because
Mhm.
in hearing it over and over and over again, matter of 2 or 3 days, talking about stuff. And what I know about what's going on, when I hear other people are talking about, just like. You know, it's a lot different what they perceive. Now, you were here for the one before they did, was it 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah, the one in 2017 was a very extensive, complete study.
And how much of that really,
How much did that change things?
Yeah.
In total?
Yeah.
Not very much.
Not very much.
because that's again, something I heard is that they did this whole study, but. Not a lot was done from it.
Yeah, there were a lot of recommendations in that study that never.
They never came.
Okay.
So I guess so what I'm saying is, if you want clarity on the question.
Yeah.
Is it comprehensive? I would say probably talk to Mike Collar. To find out, because I don't know the answer.
Because I know I did bring it up at the budget, or it depends when we were talking about it, that, you know, looking for someone to be a specialist on the. For the benefits and all that stuff, but that's just one part of it, and we were asking about other stuff. And well, it's gonna come, you know, that kind of stuff, so I'm just saying, I just feel there's a lot more depending on this study than. People really think. So that's gonna be important. I think. Because again, no reviews, you just did, and the whole company, I mean.
Whole county.
County that did there, so everyone knows that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I understand where you're coming from, the Harold. So, I mean, performance evaluation. I mean, because I understand you and the underachievers. But when they first came out with, they're not doing any merit pay though.
They're
Well,
not,
still
they're
doing-
not doing, okay, so there is no cost of living adjustment.
No cost of living.
So you don't get an automatic adjustment. So there's no pay adjustment unless you. Get a certain score on a performance evaluation, and based on your score, you get. Anywhere from a 0% increase for somebody who's. Underperforming greatly to, you know, on average of 4%, which means some people might get 6 and some people might get 2. Some people might get 3, some people might get 4. It depends on the number of shares. And it's also based on how long you've been an employee. So if you've been an employee a very short time, chances of you getting a much higher percentage are pretty great. If you've been here a long time, toward the end of your career, even if you performed at the top level, you're not going to get probably more than 2, maybe 3%.
Yeah. So our current structure is only merit pay. There is no cost of living.
But see, that's where, when they first came up with merit pay, that's why I was totally against the merit pay only because the one evaluation they had in there was above and beyond. I didn't like that because if you're in a job that you were here every day, you did your job or whatever, but you didn't do above and beyond, you didn't get that above and beyond merit. I mean, that was the only thing that really kind of got me with the whole merit pay. If you came in every day, did your job, was here or whatever, but because you didn't do extra, you didn't get any extra pay. See, I didn't, that's what I didn't understand.
So going back to Harold, you had a question about it. Did you get your question answered?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
All right. Anything else for Renee?
What I just thought, now they do this review every year
Every
at
year,
this time
yeah,
before, okay?
and they're all due at the same,
It's
Same
not
time.
automatic, it's not automatic raise. This is
Nope.
not, this is just a review of performance, but has nothing to do tacked on to a raise or increase of any kind, right?
correct. It's
Yep,
only
there's no
merit,
increase unless you get a certain.
depending how well you do on your performance review to, when Howard
That's your
mentioned.
increase in pay.
Let's just say, I mean, we don't have any, anyone
Right,
like
right,
that
right.
luckily, but let's just say someone in all there are seven areas, they're called competencies, 7 areas to rate someone. So let's just say someone got 0 in each area, and all 7 areas, there would be no raise, because it's
Okay.
all 0.
So last year, was there any raises? Speak up. Because like you put aside 4% across the board. for
Last year, the
everything.
average
What was it last year?
3 average.
3?
And probably, if you look at what was the average, so when you say average of 3, it's anything between 0 and
Right.
5 or 6. So, probably most people ended up there.
For
If they'd been here mid-career, got a good score, I don't know if they would have hit 3. They might have hit 2.5.
So I'm just trying to understand that they had raises in the past, or they had this 3%.
No automatics.
What?
There's no automatics in money.
Okay, but like this year, they put 4% back.
That doesn't mean you're gonna get.
Is that
4%.
different than
On
the?
average, 4%, which means
No.
that now the average you might get to 3.5.
Yeah.
If you've been here.
You may not get the 4.
That's what they budgeted.
They budgeted 4% across the board for everyone, so everyone's thinking somewhere in there. But last year, you didn't have that. There wasn't a.
Yeah,
Right off.
I'd say
They
last
put
year
4% away.
average 3. Last year was
Yeah.
average 3.
Okay, well, it was before us, we weren't part of
Yeah,
that.
it's
Yeah.
average 3.
Okay,
This
this
year was
year
average.
was old, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so every year an increase
Okay.
countywide
Okay.
is budgeted.
Okay.
But so far, and correct me if I say this wrong, what we're hearing for our projection is the highest we've seen in 5 years, 8
Yeah, I
years.
mean, average 4 is the highest I've ever
It's
seen.
been a highest spend.
I'm saying it's always good, but it's only really 1% from what it was. It
Correct.
didn't really, okay, that's what I'm trying.
And it's also what I'm trying to say is, if it's an average 4% raise, it doesn't mean that most people get a 4%.
Yeah.
It's averaged across the people that get maybe 6 because they're here early in their career and they got a very high score.
Okay.
And people that have been here a long time and maybe got a 2. So it's, I think it's probably the average person may be somewhere between 3 and 3.5. Even though there's an average of 4, you gotta count for people who got the higher ones because they were here early.
Yeah, and that's exciting. And again, I'm not trying to be one, I'm looking for what was before, what is now.
Yeah, it went up with
So,
an
when you're-
average 1%
Right.
increase.
So if you haven't been on the board for a long time, you would know this, all you would, I'm hearing 4%, man, that's exciting, we're all gonna get this money. But now I'm hearing like it was 1%. So I mean, it's a little different than, I'm not,
Yeah.
I love having raises and like that, but
Yeah,
as a supervisor been around, you knew this is just a way of doing it, but this is for a new one. I thought, well, I'm excited that everyone's gonna have a shot at 4%, but
For
it's a
most-
little different now
yeah.
than.
Yeah.
what you're saying,
For
okay?
most of the years
got
I
it.
was here, let's say for 35 years.
Okay.
The average raise for across the board, because everything was across the board for a lot of years, it was about 2%.
2%.
Okay.
That was pretty much a standard across the board increase in county. Some years 1, some years maybe 2.5, but not ever beyond that. That was,
Thanks for the information. I mean, I just,
Yeah,
it's the
no,
way I can
no,
understand that, because I haven't been here 10 years, so.
no, with this
difference.
performance thing, it's.
Yeah.
The average is 4%
Yeah.
that's out there, but you. Like it's 3.5%, you might get 3.75 of this 4%.
Right.
I might only get 2.5 of it.
Okay.
We both won't get 4%,
And I know that from now on talking.
even though 4% has been allotted, that doesn't mean you're gonna get.
I know. But again, being in business for a
Yeah.
long time and doing a lot of reviews. The perception that a person has is a little bit different.
Well, yeah.
It's the way the message is out there
Yeah.
that they look at it. That's all I'm saying.
And we do have to, that's a very good point, Ralph, and we
Yeah.
have to be prepared for that because
Yeah.
that is probably what people are hearing. I'm going to get
Get
a
a
4%
4%.
increase.
Because you gotta cross the
So,
board.
yeah.
it would
We're,
get that way.
our management team needs to buckle up because that's probably coming.
Yeah. Because I said that when we talked about this, you talk about this 4%. And you put X amount of money down for it, and then you put a little extra money away just in case. And then not everyone's gonna get it, first of all.
Mhm.
Then you got these reviews coming out and the reviews a lot of times, when I did them, is that. They were expecting, I did a good job, I should, and that was important. to me. So
Yeah.
I guess I'm just trying to understand the problem, because I said at that time. The money that you put aside is not gonna be here, weren't
Right,
based on what I know. Now I know it's a little different, so I understand.
It is.
But I mean, when
Yeah.
I was figuring 4% across the board,
yeah,
you're putting $2 million aside for what might come plus the 4%. That's not gonna.
And again,
You
just
know what I mean? I'm
quickly,
not trying to.
our structure, and stop me if you know this
Yeah.
already, but our structure is our newer folks.
Mhm.
Are higher, they'll get a higher percentage than for our more seasoned folks,
Okay.
in a nutshell.
right.
So it's not all on how good a job you're doing. If you've been here long, that's a little bit more weight too. So there's a lot. It'd be interesting for us to know.
So being here longer means you might you're likely to get a much lower
Yes.
increase?
Yes,
Because your low pay is lower, so
So-
you give a higher raise to make up
well,
for that.
What the
basically,
McGrath folks said is that the goal of a pay system is to get people to the control point of their,
Right. Okay.
so let's say the range of a person's pay over 30 years might be 20,000 to 40,000, let's say. Well, 40,000 to 60,000. Let's use that as an example. And so maybe your control point is at 35. Well, I said 40 to 60. Say your control point's at 50. So then basically they want to get you to your control point quicker. So therefore, your earlier years, you might get a higher percentage to move you quickly to your control point. After you hit your control point to when you end your career, that's not the focus of a pay system. So basically, how slowly you get there is just fine. So it's like loaded for early career and not loaded at all for control point to the end of your career. So that's the reason. Not, I mean, you'd think it's because you're getting a higher level of pay later on. That wasn't the reason that was given. It's like getting to control point quicker was the reason they have higher percentages of pay.
So what do you do when you get derailed? Like, for example, somebody comes in with a lot of experience and they're short somebody and somebody's pay gets close to somebody that's been here for 10 years, or 12 years.
Well, so that's called a compression issue. And that's what they're gonna try to address with the pay system.
I'll see there, it comes back to that. I mean. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm just, I always think,
it's hard, it's a problem, it's a problem.
Pay sale will take care.
Huh?
Pay sale will take care.
Yeah.
You'll get an explanation.
I bet you, I heard it 20 or 25 times
I
and,
Anything else?
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, no.
And Bill,
Yes, okay, I got two things on director's report. Number one, December 1st and December 2nd is the Wixa Fall Conference, and I will make sure that Pam will get an email that we can send to you so that you can sign up for your registration. I believe everything goes through the
clerk's office, yeah.
Yeah, everything will go through the county clerk. So registration and your if you want to stay overnight at the Holiday Inn in Stevens Point on December 1st, you can contact the county clerk and hopefully they can sign you up through the email. And so it's a Thursday, all day Thursday, and then overnight, and then it's Friday till, I think it's supposed to through noon
Noon, yeah,
on Thursday the 2nd.
right after
That's
lunch.
in Stevens Point at the Holiday Inn. This is not a required meeting. You don't have to go. It's if you want to go, but it's the secretaries of Department of Children and Family, Secretary of Health and Human Services is going to be there. We've got some guest speakers from out of state. Kind of got a lot of agenda items. The food is taken care of in that cost of registration. So it's just going to be the registration and the one night at the Holiday Inn, and I'll make
It
sure that
starts at what time?
it starts in the morning of Thursday.
Oh, Thursday morning.
Yeah. I think the first thing is actually, our meeting, our WIXA meeting, so you don't have to be there till noon.
Till noon, I'm gonna say,
All
yeah,
right.
it's over 10, yeah.
So we'll get you the information and you can talk to the county clerk and get signed up if you're interested. And the second thing is, I wanted to report to you how things are going with, the potential purchase of the shelter care facility that you all approved unanimously a month and a half ago. Is it a month and a half ago already? Seems like it's a month and a half ago. Or maybe 2 months ago. Anyway, so it passed here unanimously, the purchase of the shelter care on Harrison. We had our meeting there, as you recall. It went to Facilities Committee. They also met at Harrison Street. They passed it unanimously. They had one person absent, so it was 4-0. And then it went to PNF just this past Friday. It passed 4-1 for purchase of the shelter care. Now it's going to go to the county board a week from tomorrow. And I'd appreciate everybody speaking up because the person who did not want to see it pass at Personnel and Finance is likely to basically make his statements known at the county board meeting. Basically the objection was that the property is too close to the railroad tracks, is next to a bar, is a 100-year-old building, at least part of it is, that the noise of the train isn't going to keep the kids up all night. And that board member would like to have the county build a new facility. And did not hear that that's not really an option to wait 2 years to build a new building. So anyway, so I'm asking you all, if you're on the county board, to basically make sure that you say something if that comes up at the county board meeting, because we really don't have an option to wait 2 years for a new building, even if you wanted to build a new building.
That'd be lovely, but
So anyway, that's what's happening with that. I hope it passes. It's got to get a 2/3 vote of the county board membership. Not present, but 2/3 of the county board memberships. That's quite a few votes. I don't even know what 2/3 is anymore. It's in the high 20s, I think, of numbers that we need to pass.
Be 24.
24, I think it is, yeah,
24?
I think it's 24, you're right.
Okay. So we have 16, no, 5 from here, 5 from facilities, and 4 from PNF. So that's 14 that we have.
Yeah, 24,
So appreciate your
21.
support on that when it comes county board next week. That's my report.
Was it a big conversation at enough, or was it pretty much everyone saying it's a good idea except the one supervisor?
I would say that there's 5 members, 3 were in total support. One was, as I said, wanting to just build a new building, didn't really want it there. And the 5th member was kind of agreeing that they prefer a new facility, but understood that that wasn't going to happen, so voted in support. So that's where we are, and the rest of the people have not weighed in yet on that until we come tomorrow.
They didn't mention ARPA funds at all, that being.
No, did not mention ARPA.
I heard that all. the time.
No, well, yes, indirectly mentioned ARPA on if we were to build a new building.
Yeah.
Maybe ARPA could be used for it, but it was not like a long discussion about ARPA.
But even if there were pie in the sky money falling from the clouds that we could capture.
Right.
It's still not an option because we're looking at a 2-year wait to get something
Right.
actually move in ready. And what happens to these people?
And there was a piece of misinformation. That board member felt that we could talk LSS into giving us an extension of 2 years, and I said, no, I don't believe that that is the case.
They don't wanna do it, you don't wanna do it.
So so I had to say, I don't think that's an option. Unfortunately. So anyway, there's gonna be a little opposition. My point is, I perceive there might be a little opposition to the purchase. And we're gonna need to, everybody speak up. I mentioned it to the county board chair who was at PNF. He spoke up at the PNF meeting in favor of, purchasing the building. And he also said that the noise wasn't that loud because the train went by while they were meeting and it wasn't that loud. So, anyway, that's what I got.
Yeah. The biggest thing is with that, it's been operating there as a shelter care for 10 years.
Yeah.
There hasn't been any instance there with the bar, with the railroad, with anything like that. I mean,
And it's licensed already.
and it's licensed
right?
already. We'd have to if we built a new one, we'd have to license the new one. I mean, we already got that currently now.
They dropped the money from the appraisal down to cover, which normally they,
So, yeah, if you can speak up.
a lot of
there.
different stuff. That makes sense.
So just wanted to let you guys know in case that comes up the county board, what's gonna happen.
All right, any other questions, Bill?
Nope.
All right, then discuss the draft of 2023 human services board meeting schedule.
It all makes sense to me.
So of course, we had to change the ones where holiday falls on a Monday, first Monday, and that's,
We always do that.
it's the first of the year. The one, let's see, is the Memorial Day, always kind of throws us for a loop. And Labor Day.
And we never meet in July because we've had 2 meetings
Right.
at the end of
Fourth of
June.
July, yeah, we never meet
Same old
in
schedule.
July anyway.
Yeah.
So mainly it's just New Year's and Labor Day.
Well, in Memorial Day,
That's the end of the month.
oh yeah,
Memorial
that's
Day's
right,
at the end
you're
of
right.
the month,
I'm
Labor Day,
sorry,
you're thinking Labor Day. I
I'm
think.
sorry. Memorial
Yeah,
Day. It's
yeah.
not the First.
So yeah, just Monday, July 4th doesn't matter because we don't meet in July anyway. So we're talking just mainly the Wednesday, the 4th, July 4th, and July and January 4th, and Wednesday, September 6th. And there's only 2 changes.
And if we get closer and that Wednesday doesn't work out, I mean,
Right.
you guys can always decide. to
That's
change.
true.
And you don't need to vote on this, it's just
No.
for
It's
information.
just information.
But it's just information mostly.
Right.
I mean, it's
But you
all,
should put it in your calendar.
I mean, we will,
Those
we
dates are
will,
pretty much
Well,
set.
these dates are set now. I mean,
I'm asking is it always, every month you have one? Have you ever missed one or when every other one, or has it always been that? I'm just asking.
I think we've always met.
we've
at
only
least once-
missed one for
Okay.
very rare circumstances. We've always met monthly, so you guys can get monthly updates on what we're doing.
Okay.
We don't have a lot of resolutions to pass, so in case somebody can't make it, we've always somebody's missing today. I mean, it's, if you gotta miss, you gotta miss, but, most of the time we don't have a resolution to pass, so.
Yeah, 'cause some of the boards are on that, it seems like some of them have gone to every other one now,
Oh, yeah.
because there's not much to do or something. I'm just asking about that. So like it's never been.
I mean,
Just
if you wanted to change it, I mean, that's up to you as a group.
Okay, but it's nice to meet once a month, and it's nice to do different programs, that we have. But we got a lot of programs in human
Right.
services, that you wanna be up to date with.
Okay.
All right, board members' reports. Ralph?
I don't have any other than, we went through a lot of stuff. I mean, it was interesting to go through it all. I think a lot of it is there's a lot of new people now, okay, so you need to be updated on a lot of stuff, and a lot of stuff. I went to a couple of meetings before for the budget, so I saw individuals, some of board members, nobody went except me, myself, and the committee was there, so I find that I'm learning by going to different events and finding out. And every meeting I come to, I find out more information, which you need. I think that's important to be able to go on. I for a while, I hadn't gotten any phone calls. All of a sudden, With this pay thing, I've got a lot of phone calls all of a sudden, so interest this, so ask them more questions, that, so. For me, the boards have been good, we're learning a lot. And I think for myself, I, as a new member, I think I got into a bunch of stuff, I read, I did all this stuff, but I really. Sometimes when the resolutions come months later, you have 2 months of people, you're talking to you, telling them stuff, you might change your mind and do stuff. And I see that lately where people thought one way and then 2 or 3 months later, hey, things have changed, so that you're starting to see a flexibility like that. So it's the more information you get, more up to date you are, what's going on, asking questions is not bad. I feel bad sometimes the board, when people ask questions, some people in the peanut gallery are kind of heckling them, which I think that's terrible. I mean, you have a right to ask, stupid as it might be, you have a right to do that, so. And again, I tried to ask more questions, because some people are not asking any question, so it's important, but the more it helps to be able to do what we're doing here. And I think the meetings, more and more people are starting to listen to it, find out about stuff, want to be a part of this. It takes a while, and again, some people told me when you first become a supervisor, it takes you 2 years to learn a job. That's what your term is. So you got to go a couple more to kind of really know the job, or you're not going to do anything. So, I'm not an expert or anything, but bring business background, but I find it enjoyable to find out as much as I can. And the last thing I had to say is, I really feel bad that so much of the public have no idea. I mean, it comes from the election, not people showing up and voting for it. What are you doing? What do you mean, what have you been doing? You voted me in. What do you mean? Haven't you watched? No, we haven't. But I mean, the education can never stop. We have to get people more informed what's going on. They have no idea. And it's sad to see that many people don't get involved, don't know what's going on. And there is a lot going on. And the little bit of people come out when they complain about one thing, but you really need to know more about what's going on. And stop into the places here, and then like it's talking to the shelter. You can't possibly have an idea about that place. You got 10 years, a lot to know about it. So I think there's a lot of value in knowing as much as you can. So I appreciate all you do and what you do, and I appreciate that. Let me have the opportunity. That's me. Sorry.
Rachel? Karen?
I'm just wondering, what kind of ongoing support the, human services employee is receiving? The one who, Ethan Hullenberger threatened to urinate on, and going along with that, his or her client, who Ethan accused of being a drug addict. Is there ongoing support for them? Because I know there's some hurt feelings.
Yeah, so I'll answer it this way, rather than get into the specifics of them. I think it's fair to say that we take any kind of harassment really seriously, and whether it's coming from somebody in the public or whether it's coming from somebody inside this organization, harassing anybody is not going to be tolerated, and we're reporting it. And it was, what happened was reported, and the person who it happened to, I also know is supported and feels supported, and
the
people have
client?
gotten what they needed.
And the client?
And the clients are taken care of, yes, hopefully not identified at all through this process. So, we're making sure that clients are not identified, that clients are, served the best way we can serve them.
I'm just saying, as a client, do you feel the client, do you know the client is being supported in whatever way he or she felt dismissed, insulted, however that person felt?
Are you asking, Karen, because of that article? Like, was the client
I'm
able to
calling-
identify
I'm asking
himself?
because I actually received a phone call from someone involved. And I know this person was feeling very hurt. So I'm checking to make sure that these people, because, yeah, I saw the article, but no, I was actually, someone reached out to me who was directly involved in this. Okay. Directly impacted by this. And I want to know that the employee and the client are being held up and being supported and being whatever they need.
As far as we know, yes. Yeah, we're pretty comfortable with you, yes.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Anything else?
Oh, that's it.
Mr.
Harold?
Chair, no report.
Chris, anything?
Yeah, I just, sorry I was late. I'm part
okay.
teaching the Powerful Tools for Caregiver class with Elisa from the Aging and Disability Resource Center. And we have 7 participants in the class. It's a wonderful offering by the department, and feel honored to be a part of it to help individuals that are in that caregiver roles. So again, sorry I'm late, and hope to be at the whole next meeting. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Donna, you have anything?
Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good, wonderful. I am also sorry I'm late, and every time I do this, you know, it's a learning curve for me, and I apologize again. I have nothing except that I did by chance meeting run into our former board member, Judy Wright, and we had a wonderful little visit. She's doing well, misses us, and sends you all a hello. And so that's all I have for her. It was very nice to see her, and she's looking very good and happy. So that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Rachel? I mean, Becky, I'm sorry, Becky?
Thank you. One of my questions, at last month's meeting had to do with Advocap opening their meal site in Menasha, and I'm happy to report that they have.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Good. All right. All right, anything else?
Move to adjourn?
And say a motion to adjourn.
Move there.
And second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you all.
Karen, I did quick look at the conference.
Must have-
So on Thursday, as Bill
Yes.
mentioned, the business meeting is in the morning. Lunch